Tears filled Omalicha's eyes. I was going to tell you. I was just waiting for the right time. Liar! Akweke interrupted. She was not going to tell you anything. That was how she deceived Ago into marrying her, knowing fully well that she was not a virgin. Am I lying? She sold herself so cheaply to a man. She was sent away from her husband's house just the next morning after her wedding. I can't believe she did not tell you. She eyed Obinna from head to toe again. But then, the both of you deserve each other. You know, seeing that you're not even fit to be with a proper maiden. Akwabo was a big, beautiful village, well known for their strict values, rich cultural values, and the sweet taste of their special palm wine. The village boasted of tall palm trees which produced the sweetest wine you would ever taste. People came from far and near to buy and resell in their villages, and there were some who came just to relax and enjoy life. Palm wine tapping and selling was the major source of livelihood for the people of Akwabo, and the village flourished. In that village lived a man named Amadike. He was a wealthy man in every sense of the word, of course, by the village's standards. He owned acres and acres of land filled with palm trees, and his palm wine business flourished. Amadike was one of the most respected men in Akwabo. The man was not only successful in business, he had a large home filled with children, both male and female. He had 3 beautiful wives, and they all lived happily. Amadike was also a successful husband and maybe father. However, he was strict and no nonsense. That is why even in his home, he was respected. Amadike had over 20 children. But this story is about one, a beautiful young girl named Omalicha. Omalicha was quiet and kind to a fault. She loved to read, and even in that time when education was a story brought from overseas, and books looked like magical objects, Omalicha was fascinated by them. She had not even the smallest idea how to read, but she enjoyed looking at the small fancy books and the beautiful letters. Her childhood friend Ezinne usually brought those books to her. Ezinne's brother Eken was studying abroad in the white man's land. It was a rare opportunity that only a few could afford. But Eken was sent out to the city very early in life, and because of his unmatched intelligence, when the opportunity to study overseas came for Akwabo, his family jumped on it, and even the village came together to jointly sponsor his education. He had not been home in years, but he often sent letters and little things home to his parents and siblings in the village, even though he knew that they had no idea how to read. Omalicha often dreamed of studying overseas, just like Ekene. She wanted to read and write. Her father could afford it, even without the help of the villagers, but she had not even gotten basic education, and besides, even if she had, she was just a girl. At that time, it was seen as a total waste of money to spend good money sending a girl to school. Talk more of sending her abroad. A girl was to learn how to cook, take care of children, and keep a home. Amadike did not feel any differently. Omalicha had accepted her fate, but it did not quench the zeal and fire burning inside her. One evening, when almost everyone had returned from the day's work, the village town choir went around the village. There was an important information. Ekene, the first graduate ever in Akwabo, was coming home in a week's time. The entire village danced with joy. Everybody, both old and young, were excited. From the next day, preparations started to welcome Ekene home. The village dancers started practicing new dance moves. Families started planning the special dish to present to their newest graduates. The villagers prepared their new clothes. Mothers prepared their maidens with the most beautiful wrappers and beads. And of course, hairstyles. Everyone hoping that their daughter would catch Ekene's eyes. The occasion promised to be a grand one. While the other maidens were excited and prepared to flaunt their beauty in front of Ekene, Omalicha was also excited, but for a different reason. She wanted to learn as much as she could from him, to see the world of knowledge through his eyes, and just maybe she could learn how to read and write. She could not wait to meet him, and luckily for her, he was her best friend's brother. She could not wait for the day to come. The long-awaited day finally arrived. The village square was filled with excitement as the people of Akwabo gathered in their finest attire, each person eager to catch a glimpse of their returning son. The colors of bright wrappers and embroidered shirts blended beautifully, and the air smelled of fresh palm wine and roasted meat. As soon as Ekene entered the square, flanked by the messengers who had gone to bring him home from the local seaport, the entire village erupted in deafening cheers. The drummers struck their drums with more energy, the rhythm rising like a heartbeat, faster and louder. The dancers leaped into the open space, their feet kicking up dust as they moved with practiced grace, their waist beads jingling to the beat. It was a celebration fit for a king. If a stranger had walked into Akwabo at that moment, they would have thought a prince had returned to claim his throne. The men greeted him with firm pats on his back, their laughter booming as they praised his achievements. The king himself welcomed him warmly, his voice filled with pride. "You have brought honor to Akwabo, Ekene. We are proud of you." And of course, the mothers, being, mothers, saw an opportunity they could not waste. One by one, they softly pushed their daughters forward, hoping to catch his attention. The maidens stood in their best postures, their smiles bright, their eyes fluttering. Some brought gifts, small gourds of palm wine, well-wrapped pieces of meat, even fine hand-woven clothes. Ekene accepted everything with polite smiles, but his interest remained unchanged. The village maidens were beautiful, yes, but their actions were too obvious, their excitement too childish. He could see right through them, and their constant flirtation only amused him. The celebration lasted until dusk. The people of Akwabo drank, danced, and rejoiced until their legs grew weary, and one by one they returned to their homes, exhausted but satisfied. The next few days was still a very festive one. Mothers kept on preparing special delicious foods and kept on sending their daughters to deliver them. They were so obvious that Ekene could see right through their actions. He still showed no interest in any maiden in particular. They were beautiful, but they were certainly not his type of women. However, their childishness and obvious flirtation was still very funny to him. While the other maidens focused on catching Ekene's eyes, Omalicha had a different goal. She had spent days wondering how she could approach him. He was no longer just Ezene's older brother. He was now a man of the world, someone who had seen and learned things beyond what she could imagine. Would he even remember her? One evening, unable to hold back any longer, she turned to Ezine. Ezine, please, help me talk to your brother. Eh? She pleaded. Ezine laughed, shaking her head. But he's like a brother to you too. He knows you. Just talk to him yourself. Omalicha sighed in frustration. Ezine, you know that's not that simple. Look at the way all the maidens in the village are throwing themselves at him. If I go to him now, he will just think I'm like the rest, trying to get his attention. Ezine considered her words, and she could understand what Omalicha was saying. And so she agreed to speak with her brother. That evening, after the family had eaten, Eken sat under the Ichiku tree in their father's compound, enjoying the cool breeze. Ezine joined him, eager to hear more about his experiences in the white man's land. Eken spoke of towering buildings, of carriages that moved without horses, of people who wrote on white paper with ink instead of using charcoal on wooden slates. His words painted a world so different from theirs, and Ezine listened with fascination. Then, when he became quiet, she seized her chance. Ekene, do you remember my friend Omalicha? Ekene chuckled. The little Omalicha who you used to run around with naked. Of course I do. Well, she loves books, Ezine said. She doesn't know how to read, but she's fascinated by them. She's always wanted to learn. I was hoping you could teach her. Ekene was surprised. A maiden who wanted to learn? That was rare. Most of the girls he had encountered in the village were more concerned about marriage and house chores. It was refreshing to hear that someone was eager to gain knowledge. She wants to learn? He asked. Ezine nodded. Yes, she's been thinking about it for a long time. Will you teach her? Ekene smiled. Of course. If she's willing to learn, then I will teach her. When Ezine delivered the news to Omalicha, her joy knew no bounds. She felt as though she had been given the greatest gifts in the world. That night she hardly slept, eager for the next evening when she would finally begin her journey into the world of letters and words. She had no idea what was coming. The next day she wasted no time. As soon as the chores for the day had been completed, Omalicha went off to Ezine's compound. Meanwhile, Ekene was seeing her for the first time since he arrived, and when he saw her, time literally stopped. She was no longer the little Omalicha he remembered. She had blossomed into a very beautiful maiden, and when she greeted him, her voice was as soft as melted butter. Her shy smile was dazzling. How could one person be this beautiful? He thought to himself. What even surprised him the most was how he had never seen her till that day. But quickly he had to remind himself that Omalicha was like a sister to him. Besides, he was not interested in any village girl. Omalicha learned quickly, surprising even Ekene with her sharp mind. She picked up new words effortlessly, and her excitement for knowledge was unlike anything he had ever seen before. It was refreshing, even inspiring. He had met many girls, both in the village and abroad, but none of them captured his attention the way Omalicha did. At first, he told himself it was just admiration. He was proud of her progress, nothing more. But as the days passed, He found himself watching her more closely, noticing the way her eyes lit up when she understood something new, the way she bit her lip when she struggled to pronounce a word. Omalicha was different. It wasn't just her beauty. She was not the most beautiful maiden in Akwabo, but there was something about her that made her stand out. It was her mind, her thirst for knowledge, her innocence. She seemed completely unaware of the charm she possessed, and even that fascinated Ekene the more. He tried to ignore the growing feelings inside him, but it was impossible. He was drawn to her in a way he had never been drawn to anyone before. And the truth was, Omalicha felt the same way. They said nothing about it, but their lessons became more than just reading and writing. Their eyes lingered on each other longer than necessary. Their hands brushed when exchanging books, and sometimes they forgot the lessons altogether and just talked about life, dreams, and the world beyond Akwabo. The village began to notice. It was not long before people started talking. Their lessons were held under the Ichiku tree in Ekene's father's compound, where passerby could easily see them. At first, it was just whispers, curious glances and quiet gossip. But soon the rumors spread like wildfire. Omalicha is always with Ekene, they would say. They sit too close to each other. Have you seen the way he looks at her? Even her parents heard the gossip, but they did not scold her. They were pleased. At least her books have gotten her a good man, her father said proudly. The other maidens were filled with jealousy. They had spent weeks upon weeks dressing up, cooking special meals, and trying to impress Ekene. Yet, he barely noticed them. But Omalicha, who had never even tried, had somehow captured his heart. Still, Omalicha and Ekene paid little attention to the village talk. They were in a world of their own, and without even realizing it, their relationship shifted. He was no longer just her teacher, and she was no longer just his student. One afternoon, Ekene took Omalicha to the stream. They sat on a large rock by the riverbank, enjoying the cool breeze. The water flowed gently, birds chirped in the trees, and everything felt peaceful. As usual, Ekene told her stories of the white man's land, stories of women who went to school just like men. Omalicha listened with wide eyes, completely lost in his words. Then, suddenly, he stopped talking. She turned to look at him and saw something in his eyes, something she could not name, but something that pulled her in. Slowly, he bent forward. Her heart pounded, but she did not move away. His lips met hers, soft and warm, and in that moment, Omalicha felt something she had never felt before. It was strange, yet wonderful. When he pulled away, she touched her lips, unsure of what had just happened. That, Ekene said with a small smile, is called a kiss. Omalicha blushed, but she found that she liked it. And after that day, it happened again and again and again. For weeks, they kept whatever was happening between them a secret. But the more time they spent together, the harder it became to resist their growing emotions. One night, everything changed. Things got heated up, and they both got carried away by their emotions. Under the glow of the full moon, Omalicha lost her innocence to Ekene. She had lost something she could never take back. But in that moment, she did not regret it. In her mind, he loved her and was going to make her his wife. He had not said it with his mouth, but his actions showed it. Eken, however, regretted his actions as soon as it was over. He understood the implications of what they had just done, and it was a reality he was not prepared to settle for. He wanted a future for himself, but it was certainly not in Akwaabo. Neither was it with a naive village girl. In fact, his visit was supposed to be temporary, one that was to last for just 3 months. He had a job already waiting for him as soon as he went back to the white man's land, the land of golden opportunities. Eken could not sleep that night. He was reading with guilt and shame. He had taken things too far and done what he had not intended to do. The joy in her eyes haunted him. She was so sure that he was going to do the right thing. But even he did not trust himself. He started avoiding Omalicha. At first, she did not understand what was going on. But after a few days, she realized that he was avoiding her, and it made her so sad. She wanted to see him, even if to make sense of what was happening. But he always made Ezinne tell her he was busy or not around. Ezinne noticed that things were not right. It was obvious, but none of them was willing to say anything. Then, one day, Omalicha came and was told that Eken had gone back overseas, unannounced. "You did not know?" Ezinne said, looking surprised. Omalicha merely shook her head. "I thought that was why the both of you were acting funny." Ezinne hugged her friend. "I'm so sorry, Omalicha. I know you liked Eken, but don't worry. You will find a nice man that will take good care of you." But those words were nothing to Omalicha. She knew she had made a terrible mistake, but she dared not say it to anyone, not even to Ezinne. Her heart broke into many pieces, and she secretly cried in her heart for days. It was not long before the news of Ekene's sudden departure went around Akwaabo. Omalicha's mother did her best to console her daughter. Amadike was indifferent, and the maidens of Akwaabo had a field day. They clapped their hands in excitement, as if they had been waiting for this to happen. They made an open mockery of poor Omalicha wherever they saw her. Akweke, one of the village maidens in particular, was extra excited. She did not miss an opportunity to make an open caricature of Omalicha. One day, on their way to the stream, Ezinne and Omalicha came face to face with Akweke. Akweke burst into laughter. "So, this is how some people were abandoned after shamelessly throwing themselves at a man. Ha! The gods forbid." Omalicha knew the words were for her, but she wanted to ignore it. Ezinne, however, refused to let it go. "What did you just say, Akweke?" "You heard me correctly," Akweke replied. "Besides, I was not talking to you." "Oh, but you are talking to me. If you are talking to Omalicha, then you are talking to me." Ezinne clapped her hands dramatically. "So, even you can talk? You that was parading yourself shamelessly in front of my brother with that tasteless vegetable soup you and your mother kept cooking. Now you have the mouth to talk. And who even told you that there was anything between them before? Enemy of progress, rumor monger." The girls left Akweke standing there, speechless. Gradually, the stories started to subside and life continued. But it was no longer the same for Omalicha. She lost interest in books, for they reminded her of Ekene, and instead she focused on doing the things that were expected of a maiden. But trouble, they say, came when you least expect it. Days turned into months, and the season passed. There was still no word from Ekene. Suitors started to come to ask for Omalicha's hand in marriage. She had no interest in anyone particularly and kept rejecting them. Her mother thought it was just because of Ekene and urged her daughter to pick a man. Forget about that boy, Omalicha. Pick one of these fine men and settle down, she pleaded with her daughter. But Omalicha had a bigger problem. She was no more a virgin. And in Akwabo, it was a taboo for a maiden to be found deflowered the morning after the wedding. They had a long-standing tradition where the women would come in the night with a white cloth, which will be used to prepare the bed for the new couple. And then the next morning, they will appear again as early as possible to claim the white sheet, which of course should have a blood stain on it, symbolizing the purity of the bride. The village women would wave the white cloth through the village, singing and dancing until they reached the home of the bride's parents, where a big feast would be waiting. It was a shame to your family if your white sheet came out without a stain. This was Omalicha's problem. But when the pressure became too much, she had to pick a suitor and settle down. She picked a man, a wealthy man, named Ago, and wedding preparations started immediately. Omalicha buried her secret in her heart, hoping that since it was just once, then by some miracle, there could still be a little blood to show. But it was not so. The wedding came, people ate and drank and were merry. And finally, it was time to go to her husband's house. The village women did as was expected of them. Everything was going well. In fact, her husband Ago was too full of wine to even notice anything. But when morning came and eyes became clear, everything too became clear. The women were shocked. Ago was beyond shocked. He was mortified. He was furious. The women took the stainless white cloth round the village without any singing and dancing. And by the time they reached Amadike's compound, he had already heard the news. The village was covered in chaos. Omalicha wept uncontrollably as she was sent back to her father's house with her luggage. Ago and his family demanded a refund of the bride price they paid, and with his face covered in shame, Amadike sent every penny back. If you thought Omalicha was mocked before, then you can imagine what the situation would be. She was now a complete public disgrace, and it was not hard to piece together what had happened. Everyone knew immediately that it was Ekene. Amadike was livid. He had never been so embarrassed in his life. He nearly disowned Omalicha, but his wives continued pleading on her behalf. She dared not show her face in his presence. She is of no use to me as a daughter. No man will ever marry her now. Therefore, if she must remain under my roof, she should join the laborers in the palm wine stall. At least there she would be useful, Amadike declared in anger. And so Omalicha was designated to the palm wine stall in the market, along with other laborers her father paid. But even then, life was not easy for her. People talked, whenever she passed. They did not even care if she heard them. They called her all sorts of vile names. Some of the maidens, led by Akweke, made jest of her openly, and the men, ones who adored her, looked at her like she was a forbidden object. Even Ezinne's parents warned their daughter to stay away from her. She is a bad influence, and if your suitors know that you are friends with her, no one will marry you, they said to Ezinne. So, even Ezinne stayed away from Omalicha. At a point, Omalicha wanted to end her life. But when she thought about her mother's unwavering love towards her, it was enough to keep her going. One day, this poor-looking stranger came to Amadike's palm wine stall. He was dressed shabbily. From all indications, he was a palm wine seller, obviously not from Akwabo. He had come to buy palm wine to resell in his own village, like many other traders. He was immediately captivated by Omalicha the moment she greeted him. Something about her called out to him. Her voice was so soft. He came again the next day, and the day after that. In fact, he came every day and always smiled at her. Omalicha, despite what she was going through, still remained kind. She returned his smile every single time and even greeted him warmly. Because of her, he became a regular customer and wanted only Omalicha to sell to him. Omalicha became friendly with the poor palm wine seller, and they talked for a while every time he came. Somehow she even started looking forward to seeing him every day, and he did not fail to show up. One evening, after most customers had left, the stranger lingered. Gathering his courage, he introduced himself as Obinna, a palm wine trader from Umuago. "You are very beautiful, Omalicha, and I admire your kindness. I want to marry you." Omalicha burst into laughter, the first in a long time. "You want to marry me? You don't even know me." "I may not know you, but just know it in your mind that I, Obinna, will marry you." Omalicha shook her head, but did not say anything. Very soon, he will find out the truth about her, and like every other man, he will be gone. But in the meantime, he escorted her halfway home before he continued his journey back to the village, and she let him. The next day, again, he was there waiting for her, and over the next few days, it became a pattern, a routine. In no time, as it was usual, tongues started wagging. The beautiful Omalicha, the daughter of the great Amadike, had now been reduced to nothing, to the point that a common peasant was now walking her home every day. People shook their head in pity. But Omalicha was not moved by their gossip. She had heard worse things about herself. In fact, she had started to enjoy Obinna's company. He seemed like the only friend she had at that moment. He made her laugh, and when he was around, she forgot her problems. He had become a very good friend to her. But something troubled her deeply. He still insisted every time that he was going to marry her. She knew it was not a joke. He meant it. She could see it in his eyes. And every time he asked, she turned him down. The fact that she was no longer pure, and added to the list, she was now a rejected bride, meant that no man would ever see her fit to be his wife. It would break his heart if he found out, but still, she knew that she needed to tell him. But how would she bring herself to say such a shameful thing. Eventually, she decided to tell him the truth so that he could find a wife elsewhere. But still, she kept posting it. There never seemed to be a right time to say it. Until there was. One evening, while Obinna was escorting Omalicha home, as usual, they came face to face with the one person Omalicha wanted to avoid at all costs. Akweke. Akweke smiled mischievously as she approached. So, it's true. Hey, she said, eyeing Obinna from head to toe with disdain. Who would believe that the daughter of the respected and wealthy Chief Amadike, the beautiful Omalicha, would be brought so low as to be escorted by a peasant palm wine seller? She burst into laughter. Oh, I forgot. She has been cast away by her father. Ah, it makes sense to me now. Birds of the same feather flocking together. Omalicha's anger boiled. Stop this now, Akweke. Akweke feigned surprise. Stop what? She looked at Obinna's face and saw the confusion. She gasped. Oh, he does not know? Wait, Omalicha, you did not tell him to? Akweke, stop, Omalicha said firmly. Or else what, Omalicha? Akweke fired back. Obinna quickly stepped in to stop the brewing storm. Then, he turned to Omalicha. What did you not tell me? What is she talking about? Tears filled Omalicha's eyes. I was going to tell you. I was just waiting for the right time. Liar! Akweke interrupted. She was not going to tell you anything. That was how she deceived Ago into marrying her, knowing fully well that she was not a virgin. Am I lying? She sold herself so cheaply to a man. She was sent away from her husband's house just the next morning after her wedding. I can't believe she did not tell you. She eyed Obinna from head to toe again. But then, the both of you deserve each other. You know, seeing that you're not even fit to be with a proper maiden. Obinna looked at Omalicha, different things running through his head. Is this true? Omalicha looked at Akweke with disdain. She had nothing to lose anymore. Her secret was out. You know, Akweke, I knew you did not like me. But going this far just to tear me down is what I cannot understand. You are malicious and full of envy, hate, and bitterness. And maybe that is why you have remained unmarried. Even your attempt to force yourself on a man was still a failure. I feel nothing but pity for you. If you spend half the time you spend on idle gossip to build yourself, just maybe you will find someone that will see you as worthy to bear their children. She looked at Obinna and whispered I'm sorry. Then she left the both of them standing there, speechless. That night, she cried her eyes out. She cried until there was no more tears to shed. Obinna was unable to sleep that night. He was not a palm wine seller, as Omalicha and the other villages in Akwabo thought. He was the crown prince of Umuago, the first and only son of King Ibubago. He was in dire need of a wife, but most maidens threw themselves at him because of his status, and he was tired of them all. He wanted a woman who was kind, humble, and so he decided to spread his wings to Akwaabo, disguised as a palm wine seller. In his disguise, no maiden even spared him a glance, except Omalicha. Over the past few weeks, he had come to really deeply love her. But what he had heard that day was very disturbing. He lay awake all night. But by morning, he had decided to see her again. He heard the malicious side of the story from someone who obviously hated her. But now he wanted to hear what really happened directly from her. The next day, Obinna did not go to Akwaabo in the morning as usual. Instead, he waited until dusk before making his way there. He stood under a tree by the narrow path where Omalicha always passed on her way home. The cool evening breeze rustled the leaves, but his heart pounded harder than the wind. Then he saw her. Omalicha walked towards him, her steps slow, her eyes wide with shock. For a moment, she just stared, as if confirming he was real. "I never thought I would see you again," she finally said, regaining her composure. Obinna's gaze was steady. "It crossed my mind to never return," he admitted, "but I could not stop thinking about you. I feel bad that you kept this from me, but I thought about it the whole night, and I understand why. I know it wasn't easy, but now I want to hear everything from you. If you value me at all, if you feel even a little of what I feel for you, then tell me everything." Omalicha hesitated, then nodded. "Come with me," she said. She led him into the woods, to a quiet clearing where she often went to clear her thoughts. There, they sat on a fallen log, and she began to speak. "I loved books," she said, a small, sad smile touching her lips. "That love led me to Eken. He had traveled far and wide and had so much knowledge. The first graduate in Akwaabo. I wanted to learn to read and write, and he taught me. But also, he taught me things I never knew. He made me feel special. I thought it was love. And in my foolishness, we got carried away one day, and I gave him everything." Obinna remained silent, listening. Omalicha swallowed hard before continuing. "It happened just once, but that one night destroyed my life. He never promised me anything, so this was all my fault. I only assumed he loved me the way I loved him. Then, one day, he disappeared, just like that, back to the white man's land. I was heartbroken, but more than that, I was ashamed. I kept my shame to myself and rejected every suitor, thinking I could hide it forever. But the pressure became too much, and I finally agreed to marry Ago." She paused, her voice thick with emotion. "But my secret followed me. The morning after our wedding, everyone already knew what happened. I was disgraced. I was sent away like filth. My father was so ashamed. He called me useless, and cast me out to work with the laborers in his palm wine stall, where you met me." She wiped her eyes. "That is my story, Obinna. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid." For a moment, Obinna said nothing. Then he reached for her hands, his touch warm and firm. "That's why you always said no whenever I asked you to marry me?" he asked softly. She nodded. Obinna exhaled and held her gaze. "Omaricha, from the first day I saw you, I knew I had found what I was looking for. I told you before that I would marry you, and I tell you again, you will be my wife. I will surprise you. You will see." Without waiting for her response, he stood and walked away, leaving her speechless, watching his retreating figure disappear into the night. That night, as Omalicha lay on her bed, her mind swelled with thoughts of Obinna. His words continued to echo in her heart. Could he really mean them? Could he still want her, despite everything? Meanwhile, in the grand palace of Umuago, Prince Obinna sat with his father, King Ibubago. The king had always been more than a father to him. He was a friend, a confidant, the one person he could share everything and anything with. And this matter was no exception. After listening patiently to his son's story, King Ibubago finally spoke. "My son, do what makes you happy. Follow your heart. If she's the one you want, then don't let anything or anyone hold you back." That was all Obinna needed to hear. By morning, he was already making plans for his visit to Akwabo. This time, he was not going as a palm wine tapper. He was going as Prince Obinna, the Crown Prince of Umuago. The next day, the quiet village of Akwabo stirred with an unexpected commotion. Seated on a magnificent black horse, dressed in his royal regalia, Prince Obinna rode into Amadike's compound. Behind him, a procession of guards followed. The ground beneath the hooves of the horses trembled, and the villagers, caught between awe and curiosity, abandoned their chores to witness the spectacle. When Obinna dismounted, one of his guards stepped forward and announced in a booming voice, "His Royal Highness, Prince Obinna of Umuago, seeks an audience with Ichie Amadike." Inside the compound, Amadike heard the announcement and hurried outside, his wives trailing behind him. His heart pounded. What business could a prince have with him? Obinna stepped forward with confidence. "I greet you, Ichie Amadike. I have come to ask for the hand of one of your daughters, and it would gladden my heart and that of the entire Umuago village if you grant me this honor." Amadike beamed with pride. A prince seeking to marry from his household. It was the highest honor. "You are most welcome, my prince," he said joyfully. "I have many beautiful daughters. Tell me, which one do you speak of?" But when Obinna uttered the name Omalicha, the color drained from Amadike's face. His smile wavered, and his voice grew uneasy. "Ah, My prince, I'm afraid you cannot choose her. I have other daughters, fine maidens, befitting a prince like yourself. Omalacha is, my prince, just choose another one. Let me send for them. But Obinna remained firm. He smiled. Ichie Amadike, I know what Omalicha is, and I also know what I want. I am here to ask for Omalicha's hand in marriage. Murmurs rippled through the gathered crowd. Was this really happening? A messenger was immediately sent to fetch Omalicha from the market. Omalicha had barely finished arranging the last of her wares when she was summoned. She rushed home, breathless, only to freeze when she saw the scene before her. A prince, standing tall and regal, with the same eyes and voice she had come to cherish. I told you I would surprise you, Omalicha, Obinna said, stepping closer. I had my own small secret. I made myself a common man because I wanted a wife who was kind, humble, and who would love me for who I am, not for my title. And then I met you. Omalicha's heart pounded. I love you, Omalicha, he continued, and I love you for who you are. I don't care what society thinks is right or wrong. All I care about is what we feel for each other. So, I will ask you again. Marry me, Omalicha. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then Omalicha took a deep breath and whispered, yes. The compound erupted in murmurs. Omalicha's mother went wild when she accepted to marry the prince. She rolled on the ground and shed tears of joy. Amadike felt the tears in his eyes, but he had to hold it back, for he could not be seen showing emotions outside. Omalicha herself could not believe her luck. She thought her life was over. She was the rejected one, yet, because of her, her family would become more respected both in Akwabo and Umuago, and she had found a love like no other. Rumors traveled fast, and in no time her story spread throughout Akwabo. The same people who mocked Omalicha were the same people who sang her praises and said how lucky she was. Suddenly, all the other maidens wanted to be her. Her story turned around dramatically. Omalicha and Prince Obinna were married a few months later. It was a grand feast, bigger than any ever seen in Akwabo. The villagers ate and drank to their fill. Amadike walked around with his shoulders high. Again, the rejected stone had become the chief cornerstone. Omalicha went home with her prince to Umuago, where they lived together, and their love grew stronger. Years later, when the king passed, Prince Obinna became the king of Umuago, and with his queen Omalicha beside him, their reign was prosperous. Meanwhile, Eken never returned to Akwabo. He remained in the foreign land and did nothing for his people. The village elders ended up regretting their decision to send him overseas. He became the one who was never mentioned in Akwabo. His name became synonymous to shame, and his family were the ones to suffer the disgrace. Akweke, she still got no suitor. Seasons came and passed, and when the first one, a palm wine tapper, came forward, she wasted no time to accept him. They did not say that half-breed was better than none. Hey lovers, thank you for listening to this story. If you are new here, welcome to our community. I hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you have not done so already, please hit the subscribe button And to support the growth of our community, give this video a big thumbs up. If you know someone who would enjoy a story like this, do not hesitate to share. Don't forget to leave a comment down below. Remember, like, share, drop a comment and subscribe. I'll take my leave now, but I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.